The observation deck stretched half a mile across, its transparent floor revealing the swirling nebula below. Captain Marcus Webb stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back, watching as the massive station rotated slowly in the void. The Grand Arbitration Chamber, home to the Galactic Council, the place where 3,000 species had gathered to decide the fate of civilizations for 7 millennia. Today, they would decide the fate of humanity. Marcus had been told to come alone. No weapons, no guards, just one human standing before the assembled powers of the galaxy. He checked his uniform one last time, made sure the small data crystal was secure in his pocket, and stepped toward the entrance. The doors opened silently. The chamber beyond stole his breath. It was a hemisphere 500 feet high, ringed with ascending tiers of seats that climbed toward the curved ceiling. Each tier held delegates from different species. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others sat in containment fields filled with methane, sulfur compounds, or liquids Marcus couldn't identify. Some were humanoid. Others defied description. Tentacles, crystalline structures, clouds of luminous gas contained in force fields. And all of them were watching him. Marcus walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. The floor beneath him was polished to a mirror shine, reflecting the alien faces above. At the far end of the chamber, elevated on a platform 20 feet high, sat the High Arbiter, Ventok of the Velkari, the oldest living delegate. 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows across his angular face, each one moving independently. His skin was pale blue, almost translucent, revealing the network of veins beneath. He wore robes that seemed to shift color as he moved. Captain Marcus Webb of Earth. Ventok's voice filled the chamber without need for amplification. The translator implant in Marcus's ear rendered it in perfect English. You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for the actions of your species. Do you understand why you have been summoned? Marcus stopped at the mark on the floor, a circle of light that suddenly appeared beneath his feet. I do, High Arbiter. Then let the charges be heard. Ventok gestured to his left. A massive alien rose from one of the lower tiers. 8 feet tall, covered in dark green scales, with arms thick as tree trunks. Marcus recognized the species. Krathen, one of the Council's founding members, powerful, influential, and currently very angry. The human vessel. Nightingale Protocol entered Krathen space without authorization 17 standard cycles ago. The alien began, his voice like grinding rocks. Shortly after, our research station on Outpost Meridian went dark. When our military arrived, they found 40,000 Krathen dead, murdered. The human ship was fleeing the scene. Our forces gave chase. The humans opened fire. The chamber erupted in noise. Whistles, clicks, subsonic rumbles that Marcus felt in his chest. The translator struggled to keep up with the dozens of conversations happening simultaneously. Ventok's hand moved, and silence returned instantly. The Krathen demand justice, the scaled alien continued. We demand that humanity be confined to their home system. No faster than light travel. No contact with other species. 10,000 standard cycles of quarantine. Let them learn the cost of their violence. 10,000 years. Marcus felt the weight of those words. It would mean the end of humanity's expansion into space. The end of their dreams of joining the galactic community. Captain Webb, Ventok said. You have heard the charges. How do you answer? Marcus took a breath. Everything depended on the next few minutes. Earth had sent him with one mission: tell the truth and make them listen. The charges are lies, Marcus said clearly. And I can prove it. The chamber exploded again. This time, Ventok let the noise continue for several seconds before restoring order. You call the Krathen liars before the assembled council? Ventok's tone was carefully neutral, but Marcus saw 2 of his 6 eyes narrow slightly. I call them murderers trying to hide their crimes, Marcus replied. High Arbiter, the Krathen are correct about one thing. The Nightingale Protocol did enter their space, but not without authorization. We responded to a distress signal, an emergency broadcast that claimed the station was experiencing a medical crisis and requested immediate assistance. Convenient, the Krathen delegate rumbled. A distress signal we have no record of. Because you erased it, Marcus said. Along with everything else that would reveal what really happened at Outpost Meridian. He reached into his pocket slowly, aware that a dozen weapons were probably trained on him. Permission to present evidence, High Arbiter? Ventok studied him for a long moment. Granted. Marcus held up the data crystal. It caught the light, shimmering like a tiny star. This contains everything the Nightingale Protocol recorded before she was destroyed. Medical scans, station logs, communications, all of it. He pressed a control on his wrist. The crystal activated, projecting a hologram above his head. The image showed a space station, its lights flickering. Then the image shifted to show the interior, bodies, hundreds of them. Krathen colonists lying in corridors, in rooms, everywhere. Their scales were covered in dark lesions. Their eyes were open but unseeing. The chamber had gone completely silent. 40,000 Krathen dead, Marcus said quietly. But not from anything we did. They died from a plague. A very specific plague. One that was designed in their own laboratories. The hologram shifted again. This time it showed genetic sequences, molecular structures, complex diagrams that meant nothing to Marcus but clearly meant something to the assembled species. Several delegates leaned forward, their attention completely focused. Outpost Meridian wasn't just a research station, Marcus continued. It was a biological weapons facility. The Krathen were developing a plague that could target specific species while leaving their own biology untouched. But something went wrong. The containment failed, and the plague they designed to use on others killed them instead. These are fabrications. The Krathen delegate was descending from his tier now, moving toward Marcus with clear menace. The human invents lies to hide his species' guilt. And then explain the genetic markers, Marcus said, not backing away. The plague that killed your people shares 98% of its DNA with known Krathen bioweapons research. That's not a coincidence. That's a signature. Ventok's 6 eyes were all focused on the hologram now. Continue your account, Captain Webb. The Nightingale Protocol arrived to help. Our medical teams went aboard the station in full hazard gear. They tried to find survivors. There weren't any. But they did find the research laboratories. They found documentation, formulas, test results. Everything needed to prove the Krathen were developing weapons banned by council law. Marcus turned to face the Krathen delegate directly. Your people murdered 40,000 of your own citizens through incompetence. And when you realized humans had discovered your illegal weapons program, you sent warships to eliminate the witnesses. The Nightingale Protocol was a medical frigate. She had no weapons. No shield strong enough to matter. Your military destroyed her without warning. 47 humans died, doctors, scientists, people who came to help. The Krathen had stopped moving. His scaled face was unreadable, but his hands had curled into fists. Before the Nightingale was destroyed, Marcus said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Her captain transmitted everything to our nearest relay station. Every scan. Every image. Every piece of evidence. That data has been analyzed by Earth's best scientists and reviewed by 3 independent xenobiological research institutions. All reached the same conclusion. The plague that killed Outpost Meridian was created by the Krathen themselves? He looked up at Ventok. So yes, High Arbiter, I call them liars. I call them murderers. And I call them war criminals for developing weapons that violate every principle this council claims to stand for. The chamber erupted in chaos. This time, Ventok made no attempt to restore order. He simply sat on his elevated platform, all 6 eyes moving independently, studying first Marcus, then the Krathen delegate, then the hologram still projecting evidence above the human's head. Finally, after nearly a minute of pandemonium, the High Arbiter raised his hand. Silence fell like a hammer. This tribunal is adjourned, Ventok said. The council will review the evidence presented. Captain Webb, you will remain in the diplomatic quarter. Ambassador Thralen of the Krathen, you will also remain. No one leaves this station until we determine the truth. 3 standard days. That is when we will reconvene and render judgment. The diplomatic quarter reminded Marcus of an expensive hotel. If hotels accommodated beings that breathed chlorine or required temperatures near absolute zero, his suite had a bed, a desk, and a window that showed the nebula outside. He stood at that window now, watching the swirling colors and trying not to think about what came next. A soft chime indicated a visitor. Marcus checked the security screen. A thin, insectoid creature stood outside, its compound eyes reflecting the corridor lights. The identification system tagged it as Ambassador Dowran of the tall single quotes VR. Marcus opened the door. Ambassador, I wasn't expecting visitors. May I enter? Dalran's translator rendered the clicks and whistles as polite English. I promise I mean no harm. Marcus stepped aside. The Tal'Vari entered, moving with surprising grace despite having 6 legs. Dalran settled onto a specially designed C. Hair, folding those legs beneath a chitinous body. Your presentation to the council was bold, Dalran began. Perhaps too bold? You've made powerful enemies. I told the truth. If that makes enemies, so be it. The truth. Dalran's translator crackled with something that might have been amusement. Such a simple concept, yet so dangerous in galactic politics. Captain Webb, may I ask you something directly? Of course. Why did your species really come to the council? You must have known the risks. Known that challenging the Krathen would make you targets. Why not simply return to Earth and forget this place? Marcus moved back to the window. Outside, a patrol ship drifted past, its running lights leaving trails in the nebula's gas. Because 47 humans died. Good people. People who wanted to help strangers in need. And the Krathen murdered them to hide a crime. If we let that go unanswered, what does that say about humanity? That we can be killed with impunity? That our lives mean so little we won't even demand justice? So this is about honor. This is about making the galaxy understand that humanity has lines we won't cross. And we won't let others cross them either. Dalran was silent for a moment. Then quietly, 48 cycles ago, my people lost a colony. 3,000 Tal'Vari dead from a plague that appeared overnight. The council investigated. They found nothing. Case closed. We were told to accept it and move on. Marcus turned from the window. You think it was the Krathen? I think many convenient plagues have occurred in regions where the Krathen have interests. I think your evidence about Outpost Meridian might explain other mysteries. But Captain Webb, even if you're right, even if the council believes you, do you truly think they'll act? The Krathen are powerful. They have allies, trading partners, centuries of accumulated influence. The council will weigh justice against stability, and stability usually wins. Then the council is broken. Perhaps. Or perhaps it's working exactly as designed. To maintain peace among thousands of species with different values, different needs, different definitions of right and wrong. Pure justice is a luxury such an organization cannot afford. Marcus sat down across from Dalran. You sound like you're trying to prepare me for disappointment. I'm trying to prepare you for reality. In 3 days, the council will likely issue a statement. They'll acknowledge irregularities in the Krathen research program. They'll call for reforms and oversight. They'll express regret for the loss of life on both sides. And then they'll move on. The Krathen will pay a fine, promise to do better, and continue as before. And humanity? You'll be told you've made your point. That the system is working. That justice takes time. And you'll be expected to accept this and join the galactic community like civilized beings. Dalran's compound eyes glittered. The question is, will you? Marcus thought about Earth. About the billions of humans watching and waiting to see if their first venture into galactic politics would end in justice or humiliation. About the 47 names on the Nightingale Protocol's crew manifest, people who would never go home. No, he said finally. We won't accept it. Then what will you do? Whatever it takes? If the council won't deliver justice, we'll find another way. Dalran made a clicking sound that might have been approval or concern. Be careful, Captain Webb. The galaxy is very old and very dangerous. Humanity is young and inexperienced. You could start something you cannot finish. Maybe, but we'll start it anyway. Because some things matter more than safety. After Dowron left, Marcus contacted Earth Command through the secure quantum link. Admiral Patricia Kowalski appeared on the screen, her weathered face serious. Marcus, we've been monitoring the situation. How bad is it? Hard to say. The evidence is solid, but Ambassador Dowron thinks the Council will choose politics over justice. If that happens, we need to be ready. Ready for what? For humanity to make a statement? Admiral, I need you to prepare the fleet. Full battle readiness. I want every ship we have in space positioned and waiting. Kowalski's expression tightened. You're talking about war positioning. I'm talking about making sure the galaxy understands we're serious. If the Council won't hold the Krathen accountable, we will. And we need the military capability to back that up. Marcus, we have 17 combat-capable ships. The Krathen have hundreds. This isn't a fight we can win. It's not about winning. It's about making them understand that attacking humanity has consequences. That we're not some primitive species they can push around. Kowalski was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'll need authorization from Earth Command. I'll get it. How long to position the fleet? If we start now, 3 days. We can have every ship in position around the Council station by the time they reconvene. Do it. And Admiral, make sure we're visible. I want every species here to see what human military capability looks like. After the call ended, Marcus returned to the window. He was about to make a decision that could define humanity's future in the galaxy. Show strength now and maybe buy respect through intimidation. Show weakness and invite every aggressive species to test Earth's defenses, the door chimed again. This time, the security screen showed a human. Lieutenant Jane Park, his military attach. She entered quickly, her expression urgent. Sir, we have a problem. The Krathen delegation just issued a statement. They're calling your evidence fabricated. They're demanding the Council censure Earth for making false accusations. And they're threatening to seek reparations for damage to their reputation. Marcus laughed bitterly. Of course they are. What else? There's more. We've been monitoring communications. The Krathen have ships moving. Not toward Earth, but toward this station. 3 battle cruisers on approach. How long until they arrive? 18 hours. Sir, if they're planning to blockade the station or intimidate the Council, we need to respond. Marcus thought fast. The human fleet was 3 days away. The Krathen ships would arrive in less than a day. If they established a strong position first, it would look like humanity was responding to Krathen strength rather than the other way around. Contact Admiral Kowalski again. I want our fastest ships diverted here immediately. Even if it's just 2 or 3 vessels, we need something in position before those Krathen cruisers arrive. Sir, 2 or 3 ships against 3 battle cruisers. That's suicide if shooting starts. Then we make sure shooting doesn't start? But we show the Krathen that humanity won't be intimidated. Not here, not now. Park nodded and left to make the arrangements. Marcus turned back to the window, watching the nebula swirl. Somewhere out there, ships were moving. Weapons were being prepared. Thousands of species were watching to see what the young civilization from Earth would do when threatened by one of the galaxy's great powers. Marcus touched the data. Crystal in his pocket. Feeling its smooth surface. Evidence of genocide. Proof of murder. All the truth in the universe contained in one tiny device. The question was whether truth would be enough. Whether the Council valued justice more than stability. Whether humanity's first steps into galactic civilization would be remembered as courageous or catastrophic. In 18 hours. When those Krathen cruisers arrived, he would start to find out. The nebula outside continued its eternal dance. Beautiful and indifferent to the dramas of the mortal beings who passed through it, the tactical display dominated one wall of Marcus's suite, showing the space around the Council station in 3 dimensions. Lieutenant Park stood beside it, highlighting the approaching Krathen vessels. 3 Overlord-class cruisers, she explained. Each one mounts enough firepower to sterilize a small planet. They're not trying to hide their approach. Every sensor in the sector can see them coming. Marcus studied the display. The Krathen ships were moving in formation, their trajectory taking them directly toward the station. What about our response? Admiral Kowalski diverted the destroyer Phoenix and the frigate Resolute. They're the closest ships we have? 8 to 11 hours. Sir, that's still 2 ships against 3 cruisers. The tonnage ratio alone is 5 to 1 against us. Noted. What are the Krathen doing in the meantime? Broadcasting on all frequencies. They're claiming they need to ensure security during the tribunal. Protecting their diplomatic delegation. The usual justifications. And what's the council saying? Nothing official yet? But we're picking up a lot of chatter among the delegations. Some species are concerned about military forces converging on what's supposed to be neutral ground. Others think the Krathen have a right to protect their interests. Marcus turned away from the display. Get me a meeting with High Arbiter Ventok. Priority channel. Sir, the council specifically said they're reviewing evidence and won't hear from either side until the reconvened session. Then I'll talk to him unofficially. Make it happen. 20 minutes later, Ventok appeared on screen. The Valkyrie looked tired, his 6 eyes not moving as independently as before, suggesting fatigue in his species. Captain Webb, I was told this was urgent. High Arbiter. 3 Krathen warships are approaching this station. Our intelligence suggests they're positioning to intimidate the Council. I wanted you to know that Earth will not allow our delegation to be threatened. The Krathen claim they're here for security purposes. The Krathen are here to make sure you rule in their favor. They want you to see their military strength and remember how expensive it would be to oppose them. Ventok's translator crystal pulsed with what might have been irritation. The Council has survived 7,000 cycles without humans explaining our politics to us. With respect, High Arbiter, I'm not explaining your politics. I'm explaining mine. Humanity doesn't respond well to threats. If those Krathen ships take any hostile action, we will defend ourselves. With 2 vessels against 3? That would be brief and tragic. Maybe, but it would send a message to every species watching. That humanity fights when threatened. That we don't calculate odds when we know we're right. Sometimes the message matters more than the outcome. Ventok was silent for a long moment, his 6 eyes finally beginning to move again, each focusing on a different part of the screen. You're very young, Captain Webb. Your entire civilization is young. Do you know why the Council moves slowly? Why we deliberate and debate and sometimes take years to reach decisions? Because you're bureaucratic and risk-averse? Because we're still here. 7,000 cycles ago, when the first 5 species formed this council, the galaxy was very different. Wars were common. Genocides happened regularly. Species rose and fell within a few centuries. The Council changed that, not by being bold or aggressive, but by being patient and careful. By building systems that favored negotiation over conflict. And by letting powerful species commit crimes without real consequences? Sometimes, yes, because the alternative is war. And war, Captain Webb, war ends civilizations. Your species has only been spacefaring for a few decades. You haven't seen what a real galactic conflict looks like. Whole star systems burned. Billions dead. Technology so destructive they had to be banned from existence. The Council prevents that. Not perfectly, but effectively. Marcus felt his anger rising but kept his voice level. So we should accept injustice to preserve peace. You should understand that perfect justice is impossible when dealing with thousands of species with different values and different needs. The Council does its best in an imperfect universe. Your best resulted in 47 dead humans and a cover-up. Perhaps. We will see when the evidence is fully reviewed. But Captain Webb, sending warships to intimidate this council is not the action of a civilization ready to join galactic society. We're not sending warships to intimidate you. We're positioning defensive forces because the Krathen are doing exactly that. If you want us to stand down our ships, order the Krathen to do the same." Ventok's eyes all focused on Marcus simultaneously, which his cultural briefing had indicated was a sign of serious attention. "You're forcing the Council to choose sides." "No, High Arbiter. I'm forcing the Council to enforce its own rules. If military forces near this station are inappropriate, that applies to everyone, not just the weak species that can't threaten you." The connection ended abruptly. Lieutenant Park looked at Marcus with concern. "Sir, that didn't go well." "Actually, I think it went perfectly." Now Ventok has to decide whether the Council's rules apply equally or whether they're just suggestions for the powerful. The next few hours were tense. The Krathen cruisers continued their approach. The human ships accelerated, pushing their engines beyond recommended limits to arrive sooner. And across the Council station, delegations watched and debated what would happen when the two forces met. Marcus spent the time preparing. He reviewed everything he knew about Krathen military tactics, studied the specifications of their Overlord-class cruisers, analyzed the political situation, and looked for any advantage Earth could leverage. He was still working when Park burst into the room, her face flushed with excitement. "Sir, something's happening. The Marine Collective just announced they're sending ships to the Council station. They claim they want to ensure the safety of all delegations during this sensitive time." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. The Mrin were one of the galaxy's major military powers, known for their discipline and combat effectiveness. How many ships? 6 heavy cruisers. 8 of 14 hours? Are they allies of the Krathen? No, sir. The Mrin and Krathen have been commercial rivals for centuries. If anything, the Mrin would be happy to see the Krathen embarrassed. Marcus thought quickly. Send a message to the Mrin delegation. Polite, respectful. Thank them for their interest in Council security and suggest that if they're concerned about military forces near the station, perhaps all parties should maintain a minimum safe distance. You're trying to build a coalition. Trying to make the Krathen realize they're not the only military power interested in this situation. If the Mrin position themselves between the Krathen cruisers and the station, suddenly it's not just tiny Earth standing up to the big bad aliens. Park grinned. That's devious, sir. That's diplomacy. The Mrin responded within an hour. Their message was brief. The Mrin Collective shares Earth's concern about military posturing near neutral Council grounds. We will position our forces to ensure all parties maintain appropriate distance. Marcus felt something he hadn't felt since this whole crisis began. Hope. The tactical display updated as more information came in. Now it showed not just the Krathen cruisers and human ships, but 6 Mrin heavy cruisers moving to intercept. The geometry was perfect. The Mrin would arrive just before the Krathen, positioning themselves between the approaching cruisers and the Council station. Park was staring at the display in disbelief. Sir, the Mrin just backed our play? Why would they do that? Because they're tired of watching the Krathen throw their weight around. Or because they see an opportunity to limit a rival's influence. Or because they actually believe in the principles the Council is supposed to stand for. Does it matter? I suppose not. But sir, this changes everything. With Mrin support, we're not alone anymore. Marcus nodded slowly. The situation was evolving faster than he'd anticipated. What had started as a simple tribunal about the Nightingale Protocol was becoming something larger. A test of whether the Council's rules meant anything. A challenge to the comfortable relationships that had governed galactic politics for centuries. His come chimed. Admiral Kowalski appeared, her expression cautious but optimistic. Marcus, we're seeing the Mrin deployment. Do we have an alliance forming here? Not yet. But we have species willing to stand up for principles. That's a start. The Phoenix and Resolute will be in position in 6 hours. Once they arrive, we'll have a presence. Not enough to fight if things go bad, but enough to show we're serious. That's all we need. Have the ships take up position in coordination with the Mrin. Make it clear we're working together to maintain appropriate boundaries. After the call ended, Marcus allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Then Lieutenant Park spoke up, her voice worried. Sir, what if this escalates? What if the Krathen decide to force their way through the Mrin blockade? Then we find out if the Council is willing to allow open warfare near their headquarters. My guess? They won't be. Ventok will be forced to issue orders. Either both sides withdraw, or both sides stand down their weapons. Either way, we win. How do we win if everyone withdraws? Because it proves the rules apply to everyone. That the Krathen can't just intimidate their way through council proceedings. That humanity, working with allies, can force even the powerful to respect boundaries. Marcus returned to the window, watching as the tactical display reflected in the glass. Ships moving through space. Weapons being prepared. Thousands of beings holding their breath to see what happened next. Somewhere on Earth, billions of humans were watching the same developments. Seeing their species stand up to a galactic power for the first time. Learning that humanity's voice could matter in the vast arena of interstellar politics, the next 6 hours would be critical. When the Phoenix and Resolute arrived, when the Mrin cruisers established their position, when the Krathen had to decide whether to back down or escalate. Marcus touched the data crystal in his pocket one more time. Evidence of murder. Proof of genocide. The reason humanity was here, the reason they were risking everything, justice was worth fighting for. Even against impossible odds. Even when the entire galaxy seemed designed to prevent it, soon, very soon. The Council would have to decide if they agreed. The Phoenix and Resolute dropped out of FTL space in perfect formation. Their arrival precisely timed to the second. Marcus watched on the tactical display as the 2 human warships took up positions flanking the 6 Mrin cruisers. It was a statement. Humanity and the Mrin standing together. A wall between the approaching Krathen vessels and the Council station. Lieutenant Park checked her instruments. The Krathen cruisers have slowed. They're holding position about 2 light minutes out. Smart. They're reassessing now that they're not facing just 2 human ships. Marcus studied the display. What's the Mrin formation doing? Maintaining their blockade position. Weapons cold, but shields at maximum. They're broadcasting on all frequencies that any vessel approaching the Council station must maintain a minimum distance and submit to inspection. The Krathen won't like that. No, sir. We're already picking up protests from their delegation. They're claiming the Mrin have no authority to restrict Council approaches. Marcus smiled grimly. And the Council's response? High Arbiter Ventok just issued a statement. All military vessels are ordered to maintain current positions pending review of appropriate protocols. No one moves until the Council establishes new security guidelines. So we forced a stalemate. Looks that way. The Krathen can't push through without starting a fight. And if they start a fight this close to the Council station, they'll be clearly violating neutrality laws. Marcus felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Phase 1 had worked. The Krathen intimidation play had been blocked. Now came Phase 2, the actual tribunal. A message appeared on his screen. Ambassador Dowron requesting a meeting. Marcus approved it, and 15 minutes later the insectoid diplomat was back in his suite. Captain Webb, you've been busy, Dowron began. The Mrin deployment was unexpected, but helpful. You're building a coalition, whether you realize it or not? Species that are tired of watching the Krathen operate with impunity. Dowron settled into the chair. I spoke with my government. They've authorized me to share something with you. The Talvari diplomat produced a data device. These are medical records from our colony that died 48 cycles ago. We've compared them to the plague data you presented about Outpost Meridian. Captain Webb, the genetic markers match. The disease that killed 3,000 Talvari was created by the same research program that killed those 40,000 Krathen. Marcus felt cold. They've done this before. Many times, we suspect. I've been contacting other delegations quietly. The Dreth Imperium lost a mining outpost 60 cycles ago. Unexplained plague. The Solvan Unity had a similar incident 70 cycles ago. Always in populations that had recently opposed Krathen interests. Always written off as natural outbreaks. How many species total? We've identified 7 so far. Possibly more. Captain Webb, what you discovered on Outpost Meridian isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a pattern stretching back nearly a century. The Kraken have been using biological weapons systematically to eliminate opposition. Marcus sat down heavily. That's not just murder. That's genocide for profit. Yes, and the Council has either missed the pattern or chosen to ignore it. Each incident was investigated separately. Each one concluded with insufficient evidence. The cases were never connected, but now we can connect them. 7 species all experiencing similar plagues, all linked to the same genetic research, all occurring after conflicts with the Kraken. Marcus looked at Dowron. If we present this to the Council, they can't ignore it. Perhaps not. But Captain Webb, you need to understand what you're really doing here. You're not just seeking justice for 47 dead humans. You're threatening to expose a century of Council failure. You're asking thousands of species to confront the fact that their governing body has been either incompetent or complicit in multiple genocides. So we should stay quiet? I didn't say that. I'm explaining the stakes. If you push this, if you force the Council to acknowledge the full scope of Kraken crimes, you'll create a crisis that could destabilize galactic governance. Species will lose faith in Council authority. The careful balance that has maintained peace for thousands of cycles could collapse. Marcus stood and walked to the window. Outside, the warships hung in space, weapons ready, everyone waiting to see what happened next. Ambassador Dowron, humanity is barely a century past our last major war. We know what it's like to face genocide. We know what it costs when the powerful abuse the weak. And we learned a very important lesson from that history, that stability built on injustice isn't stability at all. It's just delayed reckoning. Even if that reckoning brings chaos? Better honest chaos than comfortable lies. The Council can adapt or it can fail, but it can't continue covering up mass murder just to maintain appearances. Dowron made a clicking sound that might have been approval. My government feels the same way. We're prepared to stand with Earth when the tribunal reconvenes, to present our evidence alongside yours, to demand a full investigation of all Kraken biological research over the past century, and the other species you mentioned. I'm still working on them. Some are afraid. The Kraken have long memories and many ways to punish those who oppose them. But fear, Captain Webb, fear might work in our favor. If we can show that the Kraken are vulnerable, that humanity and its allies can challenge them successfully, others might find courage to come forward. After Dowron left, Marcus contacted Earth Command again. This time he spoke with Director Helen Brooks, the civilian head of Earth's interstellar affairs. Marcus, we've been following the situation closely. You've managed to avoid a shooting war. That's good. But you're also building toward a confrontation that could have serious consequences for Earth. I understand that, Director. But we can't back down now. If we accept a whitewash of the Nightingale Massacre, we teach the galaxy that humanity can be pushed around. I'm not asking you to back down. I'm asking you to be smart about what comes next. The tribunal reconvenes in 2 days. When it does, you're going to present evidence that could tear the Council apart. Are you prepared for what happens if you succeed? Marcus thought about that. What do you mean? I mean that governments, even galactic ones, have ways of dealing with threats to their authority. If you force the Council to admit massive institutional failure, they might decide the solution is to eliminate the problem. Meaning you. Meaning Earth, they could vote to quarantine humanity, cut us off from galactic civilization as punishment for causing instability. Or they could do the right thing and hold the Kraken accountable. They could. But Marcus, you need to plan for both possibilities. If this goes wrong, Earth needs to be ready to stand alone. Are we? Marcus considered the question seriously. 17 warships against a galaxy of thousands of species? It wasn't even close to a fair fight. No, Director. We're not ready to stand alone against the entire galaxy. But we're ready to stand for something. And sometimes that's more important than being ready to win. Brooks was quiet for a moment. Then, all right. You have Earth's full support. Whatever happens in that tribunal, we stand behind you. But Marcus, for what it's worth, I think you're right. About the council, about justice, about all of it. Sometimes you have to break things to fix them. The next day was spent in preparation. Marcus met with Dowran and representatives from 2 other species willing to present evidence. They coordinated their testimonies, made sure the genetic data was properly formatted for council review, and prepared for every possible Krathen counterargument. Lieutenant Park kept him updated on the military situation. The standoff continued. The Krathen cruisers maintained their distance. The Mrin and human ships held their blockade, and the council furiously debated new security protocols. "Sir, we're picking up increased communications traffic," Park reported late in the day. "Multiple delegations are holding emergency meetings. Something's happening. Can we determine what?" "Not specifically, but the pattern suggests they're discussing the tribunal. Word has gotten out about the coalition forming against the Krathen. Species are taking sides." Marcus felt a chill. Taking sides is how peace turns into war. "Yes, sir. But it might also be how change happens." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He stood at the window watching the nebula, thinking about the path that had led here. The Nightingale Protocol responding to a distress call. 47 humans dying because they tried to help. And now, 2 days away from a tribunal that could reshape galactic politics or end in humanity's isolation. His come chimed at 0300. Station time. Admiral Kowalski appeared, her expression urgent. "Marcus, we have a situation. Long-range sensors are picking up massive fleet movements in Krathen space. Multiple battle groups mobilizing. Current projections suggest they're preparing to move toward council space." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "How many ships?" "At least 40 capital vessels. Probably more." "Marcus, they're not positioning defensively. This is an offensive deployment. Targeting the council station?" "Unknown. But if they're trying to intimidate the council before the tribunal, this is how they do it. Show up with overwhelming force. Make it clear what happens if the ruling goes against them." Marcus thought quickly. How long until they could reach us? If they move at maximum FTL, 16 days. But Marcus, they don't have to reach us to make an impact. Just knowing that fleet is coming changes the political calculation for every council delegate. Then we need to change the calculation right back. Contact Earth Command? I want authorization to bring every available human warship to council space. Everything we have. If the Krathen are going to threaten the galaxy, they need to see that humanity won't back down. Marcus, that's our entire fleet. If we commit everything here and the Krathen decide to hit Earth directly, then Earth fights with everything we've left behind. But I won't let the Council make decisions based on fear of Krathen, military power without showing them that others are willing to fight too. Kowalski nodded slowly. I'll start issuing orders. Marcus, this is it. Once we commit the fleet, there's no going back. We're all in. We were always all in, Admiral. From the moment the Nightingale Protocol died, we just didn't know it yet. The connection ended. Marcus returned to the window, watching the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the Krathen fleet was gathering, and somewhere else, human ships were preparing to jump into hyperspace, heading toward a confrontation that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The tribunal was 2 days away, and Marcus had just raised the stakes bayo. And anything the Council had seen in centuries, the galaxy was about to learn whether humanity bluffed. They were about to learn humanity never bluffed. The tribunal reconvened. Exactly 72 hours after the first session. But the Grand Arbitration Chamber was different now. Security had tripled. Sensors swept constantly for weapons or threats. And instead of curious observers, the galleries were packed with delegates who understood they were witnessing a moment that would define the next era of galactic politics. Marcus walked in with a different group. This time, Ambassador Dowran was beside him. Behind them came 4 other ambassadors representing species that had suffered under Krathen bioweapons. Each carried data crystals. Each had stories of the dead. The chamber fell silent as they took their positions at the center. Floor. High Arbiter Ventok looked older than he had 3 days ago. His 6 eyes moved slowly, tiredly. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. This tribunal will now hear final testimony before rendering judgment. Captain Webb, Ambassador Dowron, you have requested permission to present additional evidence. The Council grants this permission, but be warned. What you present here will be examined thoroughly. False accusations will result in sanctions against your species. Do you understand? We understand, High Arbiter, Marcus said clearly. And we're prepared to prove every claim we make. Then proceed. Marcus activated his data crystal. The hologram that appeared above his head showed a star map of the galaxy. 7 systems were highlighted in red. The Council investigated the incident at Outpost Meridian, Marcus began. They confirmed that a Krathan bioweapon killed 40,000 of their own people. But Outpost Meridian wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern stretching back nearly a century. He zoomed the map to show the first highlighted system. Talver Prime 7, 48 cycles ago. 3,000 Talvari colonists dead from an unexplained plague. The Council investigated and found insufficient evidence to determine cause. Dowron stepped forward. We compared genetic samples from our dead to the Meridian weapon. 94% match. Same delivery mechanism. Same incubation period. The only difference was the target biology. The Meridian weapon attacked Krathan physiology. The weapon used on my people attacked Talvari physiology. The chamber erupted in noise. Ventok's gavel crashed down 3 times before order returned. Marcus continued, highlighting each system in turn. Kirtle 670 cycles ago. 40,000 dead. Dreth Mining Station. 60 cycles ago. 8,000 dead. Each time, the plague appeared after the affected species had opposed Krathan economic or political interests. Each time, the Council investigated and found nothing. And each time, the genetic markers matched the Krathan research program discovered at Outpost Meridian. One by one, the other ambassadors came forward. Each presented their evidence. Each told stories of their dead. Each showed the genetic proof that connected their tragedies to the Krathan biological weapons. Program. The Krathan delegation box was occupied this time. Ambassador Threeland stood, his scaled face impassive. These are theories. Genetic similarities mean nothing without proof of intent. The Council cannot condemn my people based on statistical correlation. You're right, Marcus agreed. Correlation isn't proof. So let me show you proof. He activated a new set of files. Communications intercepts. Orders from Krathan Military Command to Biological Research Divisions. Dates spanning nearly a century. The chamber watched in horrified silence as the recordings played. Krathan voices calmly discussing deployment of biological weapons against civilian populations. Confirmation reports of successful infections. Casualty projections treated like profit margins. This is fabricated. Threllan roared. The humans have manufactured evidence to support their lies. Then explain how we fabricated communications that use encryption systems you haven't shared with any other species? Marcus shot back. Explain how we knew about research projects that weren't on any public record. Explain how 7 different species all experienced identical bioweapon attacks after opposing your interests. Ventok raised his hand for silence. His 6 eyes were all focused on the communications intercepts, still playing their damning testimony. Where did you obtain these communications, Captain Webb? Human intelligence services intercepted them over the past 3 weeks. Your encryption was good, Ambassador Threllan, but not good enough. Humanity has thousands of years of experience in signals intelligence. We know how to listen to people who don't want to be heard. Threllan was descending from his delegation box again, his massive form casting shadows across the floor. The Council cannot trust intelligence obtained through spying. This violates all protocols of diplomatic conduct. Does it violate protocols more than genocide? Marcus didn't back away. Because that's what we're talking about here. not diplomatic niceties. Not trade disputes, genocide, systematic, calculated, repeated over a century. The Krathen have been using biological weapons to eliminate any species that opposes them. And they'd been doing it with complete confidence that the Council would never connect the pieces. He turned to address the entire chamber. The question now isn't whether the Krathen are guilty. The evidence proves that beyond doubt. The question is what the Council does about it. Do you deliver justice? Or do you protect the powerful and teach the rest of us that Council law only matters if you're weak? Ventok's translator crystal pulsed slowly. Captain Webb, you've presented damning evidence. But you must understand the complexity of the situation. The Krathen Collective represents hundreds of worlds, trillions of citizens. Taking action against them risks destabilizing the entire galactic economy. So genocide is acceptable if the perpetrators are economically important? That is not what I said. Then what are you saying, High Arbiter? Because from where I stand, it sounds like you're preparing to explain why justice is too expensive to pursue. The chamber exploded with noise. Some delegates were clearly angry at Marcus's disrespect. Others seemed to agree with him. The council had fractured along invisible lines, species choosing sides based on their own interests and values. Ventok let the chaos continue for a full minute before restoring order. This tribunal will adjourn to deliberate, he announced. The full council will convene in private session to determine appropriate sanctions. Captain Webb, ambassadors, you will be notified when a decision is reached. How long? Marcus demanded. As long as necessary. This is not a decision to be made hastily. High Arbiter, while you deliberate, there's something you should know. The Krathen military is mobilizing. We count 47 capital ships and over 200 support vessels. They're positioned to move into council space. The chamber fell absolutely silent. And in response, Marcus continued, humanity has called up every available warship. Our entire fleet is en route to this station. We're not the only ones. The Mring Collective has pledged to support enforcement of whatever ruling you make. The Tal'Vari have mobilized their defensive forces. 3 other species have done the same. He let that information settle before continuing. So, High Arbiter, take as long as you need to deliberate, but understand that while you debate, 2 opposing fleets are heading toward a confrontation. If the Council doesn't establish clear authority here, if you don't prove that galactic law means something, then what happens next won't be a tribunal. It will be a war, and the Council will be responsible for failing to prevent it. Ventok's 6 eyes were all focused on Marcus simultaneously. You're threatening this council? No, I'm telling you the truth. Humanity came here seeking justice. We found a system that protects the powerful and ignores the weak. Now we're forcing you to choose. Be what you claim to be, or admit you're just theater. Either way, the galaxy learns who the council really serves. Marcus turned and walked out, the ambassadors following. Behind him, 3,000 species began the hardest conversation they'd had in 7,000 years. In the diplomatic quarter, the coalition members gathered. 7 species. 17 warships committed, with more pledged. Against them, the Krathen could field hundreds of vessels. This is insane, said Ambassador Vensha of the Curdle. Even if every species in this room commits their full military, we're outnumbered 5-1. 6-1, Dowrin corrected. But numbers aren't everything. The Krathen have to worry about defending their home systems. We only have to defend the principle that genocide has consequences. Marcus stood at the window, watching the stars. The council will take days to decide. Meanwhile, both fleets are en route. In 2 weeks, we'll all be in the same sector of space. Ships, weapons, everyone waiting to see who fires first. Lieutenant Park approached quietly. Sir, message from Admiral Kowalski. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace 3 hours ago. Ada 13 days. She wants to know if you're sure about this. Tell her I've never been more sure of anything. After Park left, Dowrin joined Marcus at the window. You've changed the galaxy, Captain Webb. Whether you succeed or fail, nothing will be the same after this. Will the council rule in our favor?
I don't know.
Ventok is old, traditional. He believes in the system. But even he must see that the system is broken. That maintaining order by ignoring justice only works until someone refuses to be ignored. And if they rule against us, then you've proven humanity doesn't belong in a council that tolerates genocide. And the rest of us will have to decide if we do either. Marcus thought about Earth, about the billions of humans watching and waiting, about the 47 names on the Nightingale Protocol's crew manifest, people who would never see home again because they tried to help strangers. In 2 weeks we'll know, he said quietly. Either the council proves it can deliver justice, or humanity learns we have to stand alone. Either way, we don't back down. We don't compromise. We show the galaxy what it means to have principles. Dalron's compound eyes glittered. Then I hope you're ready, Captain Webb, because the galaxy isn't used to species with principles. It's going to push back hard. Let it push. Humanity has 10,000 years of experience pushing back. We're very good at it. Somewhere in hyperspace, 17 human warships raced toward the council station. Behind them, 47 Krathan vessels followed a similar course. And throughout the galaxy, thousands of species watched and wondered if they were about to witness the end of 7,000 years of peace. High Arbiter Ventok sat in the council's private chambers, surrounded by the representatives of the 5 founding species. Before them lay evidence of genocide, recordings of orders to murder civilians, genetic proof of biological warfare spanning a century. We have a choice, Ventok said quietly. Justice or stability. We cannot have both. The other arbiters looked at each other. Finally, the eldest spoke. Then perhaps it is time the council remembered why it was founded. Not to maintain comfortable relationships with the powerful, but to prevent exactly what the Krathan have become. Ventok's 6 eyes moved slowly, considering. Outside the chamber, the galaxy held its breath, and in the diplomatic quarter, Marcus Webb stood ready to face whatever judgment came. For humanity. For justice. For the principle that some things were worth fighting. For, even against impossible odds, even when the entire galaxy said to, stop, humanity didn't negotiate with. Murderers. The council was about to learn what that meant. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.